everyone and welcome to another episode of the Jamie Hughes Show. My name as always is Jamie Hughes and today I'm going to be giving you my review of Tag. Now if you want to keep up to date with all the latest movie news and reviews, then make sure you hit that subscribe button, and as always with my videos, this review may include spoilers. You have now been warned. Tag is a fun, ridiculous movie. It's so over the top, but for me I think that's why it works so well, because the premise is so ridiculous. The film has to be as ridiculous and over the top, and for me I did enjoy Tag quite a bit. And one of the things that really worked well for me was just how ridiculous all of the Tag scenes and sequences were in this movie, each one topping the next by a million. I mean, this movie started off with a relatively sane one with Ed Helms' character creeping into John Hamm's office in a just really ridiculous disguise, and then from there they just got bigger and better and more ludicrous and more ridiculous and more over the top, and they worked really well. I think my favourite scene in this movie is kind of where, actually the two scenes do involve tags being made. I think the one where they first lure Jeremy Renner's character to the clubhouse, and it's done like really old school, like it pans across all of the characters and they're all waiting and ready to pounce. It felt like an old school like crime movie. They really tried to implement that well and it worked. And then the other one is just totally on the other opposite end of the scale, just so ridiculous, is where they're chasing down Jeremy Renner in the golf buggy, and it, you know, it's all relatively light, bright, and then it literally just cuts to the next scene and it almost felt that they were ripping off old school like war movies like Platoon. Even it felt like Predator at some points, where Jeremy Renner's picking off all of the characters in just over the top ridiculous ways. And as I said, I feel like I'm repeating myself a lot in this video, but it's the ridiculous of Tag that makes it work so much and makes it so enjoyable. And again, to add to that, a couple of my favourite characters in this movie, one for by a country mile, is Jeremy Renner's character Jerry, because again he's so ridiculous and over the top. I loved the narration over all of his scenes where he was maybe about to get tagged and he's just like breaking down what is going on in front of you. Again, it just works so well, really funny. And then the other character that I really enjoyed a lot on the other end of the spectrum was Hannibal Buress' character, who was just so blasé about everything. He just had these really fun, great one-liners where he wasn't really arsed with what was going on and he spoke a lot of sense. I think my favourite line from him was where he's a little bit drunk at the bar and they go like, how many drinks have you had? And he just goes, how many legs does an octopus have? And they're all like, 8. And he's like, yeah. It just really deadpan delivery, but really worked for me. And again, that is my biggest takeaway from this movie, is that it's just so fun. It's not taking itself too seriously. It's not meant to be there to be taken seriously. It is a ridiculous premise, it's a ridiculous movie, but for me, I really enjoyed it. There are a lot of fun moments, there are a lot of funny moments. I personally would have liked for more ridiculousness. I do feel like it did drop in points. They tried to get a little bit serious at points, which I'll get onto in a sec, but yeah, for the most part, I really enjoyed Tag. And kind of blending into those negatives, one of the things I didn't really like about this movie was, again, sorry, I can't remember her character name. I think it's like Clarissa or Claire or whatever, because it was very bland. Was Rashida Jones's character and kind of the story arc they went on there with Chili and Bob. It just didn't work. It was really disjointed. It took away from the main story, and in the end it didn't feel like we got a resolution to that story either. It was just kind of there to fill time almost, or that's how I felt anyway, because we didn't really get a lot of resolution with that story. And then to move on to more of a kind of serious criticism for this film, it really left a sour taste in my mouth. As I say, a lot of this movie is very ridiculous and over the top, but they kind of implement a really serious kind of element into this movie where Jeremy Renner's to-be wife is said to be pregnant, and they kind of fake a miscarriage in this movie. But the way that it's done originally, it's played as serious, and I thought, oh wow, they are genuinely taking a serious tone with this movie and trying to change it up a bit. And I thought, not to word this in the wrong way, but I enjoyed that because it felt like maybe, okay, this story is going to have a little bit of depth to it. But then they kind of played it off for a gag, and it was all like done. It was a fake miscarriage essentially, and it really took me out of the movie because I felt like they were going one way with it, and then they just tried to be just too, like, I don't know, just too over the top with it, because it was really underplayed and just kind of like a throwaway gag almost, is the fact that this girl had like faked a miscarriage, and it just really left a sour taste in my mouth. It really kind of disconnected me from the movie for a while as well. I actually kind of broke focus, and I was just trying to get my bearings back. It just didn't really work for me. It felt very misguided and very misjudged. You know, it just didn't work for me. It didn't really have a place in the film. And as I said, they'd done it in a more serious sense, and it had been implemented into the story, and that was kind of the reason why these characters kind of bonded together. I think it could have worked, but although it kind of had implements onto the story, it felt very throwaway, and it left a sour taste in my mouth, if I'm being honest with you. I know they tried to do the other kind of serious angle with Ed Helms' character, which worked a little bit better, but I was kind of too far gone at that point to kind of believe what I was seeing. And yeah, it was just a shame that kind of one moment in this film left that such of a sour taste in my mouth. But that being said, I still really enjoyed Tag. I just think that miscarriage joke was so ill-advised, ill-informed, and it really took me out of the movie and left a real sour taste in my mouth, because I think they didn't really need to use it. It had no real storyline implication for me. It just was so throwaway that it just irked me too much not to mention it and reinforce the point of how kind of just misguided it was. But that being said, as I said, Tag is still a really fun, over-the-top, ridiculous movie. Go into this movie, switch your brain off, and you will be really thoroughly entertained. Tag genuinely is a really enjoyable time. So if you guys have seen Tag, let me know what you thought about it, as always, down in those comments below. And if you did enjoy this video and you want to keep up to date with all the latest movie news and reviews, then make sure you hit that subscribe button, and I will see you in the very next episode of The Jamie Hughes Show. Ta-ra!